Today I'm speaking with Shaun Attwood. Shaun was an Ecstasy Kingpin who was facing up to 200 years in prison. He became a staple in the underground rave scene and started distributing ecstasy at the highest level in the US. He was arrested in 2002 and eventually deported back to England. His story was featured on National Geographic as an episode of Locked Up Abroad. He has also presented 3 popular TED Talks. I didn't really know how to write this intro or even where to start. Shaun's story was a chaotic roller coaster ride, but it was also a lot of fun, so you'll have to judge the conversation yourself. Finally, to thank you for checking out the new show, I'm giving away a PlayStation 5 to one of my viewers. All you have to do is like this video and subscribe to enter. That's it. Details in the comments. Now, please welcome Shaun Attwood to the Welcome Home podcast.
So, I was at Liverpool University doing my business studies economics degree, and all of a sudden, there was these news headlines on the TV, and it showed these wide-eyed young people dressed in like crazy loud coloured clothes, breaking into like warehouses and airplane hangars and getting chased by the police. Prior to that, you had to line up at a nightclub in a shirt and a tie and a suit, and the bouncers would come out and look at you like you were dirt and maybe not even let you in. And the music was completely lame. So the young people were so sick of it, all of a sudden, all across the country, they just started smashing their way into buildings, bringing these DJs in that were playing a completely new style of music. There was no dress code whatsoever. It was like Woodstock hippie style stuff in the beginning. Everyone was just buzzing, eyes like glowing, massive grins because they were all on ecstasy. And I'm seeing this on the news, like, why are these people smiling so intensely and wide-eyed and doing this new style of dancing? I want some of that. So, mate out of Manchester, who was in my economics class, says, come and check this out. Like I said, I had anxiety. I wouldn't ever dance. Too self-conscious. So I go to this club called the Thunderdome in Manchester on Oldham Road. And we go into this like big warehouse room, and it's early on. So people just stood all around the room. Nobody at all is dancing. They're all just staring at the dance floor. There's nothing there, as if expecting an elephant to materialise. So I think this is pretty crap, you know. This is not what I saw on the news. So my mate, he scores us some ecstasy and some speed from some Salford skinheads or something. Some dodgy characters. I'm a bit apprehensive at that. I think we're going to get robbed or the cops are going to get us. I'm looking all around the room. And we got a pill. I think it was like a white dove was the logo. And speed in England, it's not as strong as crystal meth in America. It comes in a gram. A gram is a hit. And you put it in your mouth and you drink it. Back then we drank it with like Lucozade. So, I'd knock all my drugs back. And go, just looking around this boring room. But it's filling more and more and more. And my mate, like at 30 minutes in, my mate comes up to me and his eyes are all wide. He's like, come on and dance. And I'm shitting myself, I don't know anybody. I don't want to dance in front of these people. So I'm thinking, what's all this about still? About 15 minutes later, I'll never forget this moment in my life because it influenced my entire future. My knees just went and I just sat on the floor. And like people just walking past me in these baggy jeans and people looking down, smiling at me. And I'm just like smiling up at them. And I'm just sat on this dirty floor, just smiling at everyone. The happiest I've ever been in my life. Then my mate finds me. He's like, come on, let's dance. Now, by now, the whole room is just like moving in a wave. And the music that before I got high had sounded like these like signals from outer space that I didn't understand. Now all these beeps and beats were just going right into my brain. And it was just like telling me that you gotta dance. I was just really feeling it all this wave, and I'm looking at how everybody else is dancing and copying it and just feeling part of this whole wave in the room. And from that moment, I did not want to stop dancing all night long. I didn't even want to go to the restroom and have a pee, take a pre-break. I just had the absolute time of my life, and I never wanted that party to end.
It's incredible hearing you tell that story, because that single night changed the entire course of your life. So after that memorable experience, you go from using ecstasy for the first time to eventually selling it, I guess, at a small scale or giving it away. Walk me through the shift between going to a rave and trying this out to now being a dealer, in a sense.
Yeah, so in the UK, I was only a participant of the rave scene. In America, I worked hard for 5 years, 6 years in the stock market. I was going to the odd event here and there, the odd club night here and there, but I thought that, I was settling down kind of. But then Wildman came over and everything just turned upside down. He lived in various properties that he got evicted from, and they just turned into 24-hour parties wherever he went. And in the beginning, in the third place he lived in, which was Rancho Murrieta Apartment Complex, Tempe, Arizona, ASU's the party central. So I'm just showing off. I could buy about 50 to 100 pills from the local dealers. My main local dealer was a guy called Acid Joey, who ended up working for me. He's dead now. He was found in his swimming pool, dead with all of his clothes on. Nearly all my male friends from America, my party friends, are dead because they were so high-risk lifestyle people. And so I'm just showing off, and giving pills away. And when you give pills away, you attract a lot of friends, surprise, surprise. Mooches. But it was feeding my ego, which eventually became as big as the Grand Canyon. And I was emotionally immature. But something in my head started to say, all right, you can go into the office for the 6 o'clock in the morning sales meeting, be doing all these very long hours as a stockbroker. Or look at the demand for this ecstasy. People were coming asking for 50 pills, 100 pills. And, there was nobody there to give them those pills. So Acid Joey found out where they were coming from out of LA. And 2 carloads of us went out there. Me and Wildman was in the front car, my twin-turbo Mazda RX-7. I was so naive back then to the ways of the law. I was going like almost 150 miles an hour, driving to LA in my little spaceship of a car with a gun in it and everything. And the car behind us had Acid Joey in it and another guy called Seth, who was one of my earlier protectors, let's say. Seth died a couple of years ago as well. So yes, all 3 of those guys are dead now. So yeah, if you're up there looking over me, thank you. This guy keeps us waiting outside of his house in West Hollywood for God knows how many hours. Then he eventually shows up. Have you seen that movie Point Break?
No, I haven't.
It's about a bank robbery, and it's gangster surfers who do the robbery. So all these gangster surfers, I've never seen those in real life, were at this guy's house. When they left, I go in, and I'm thinking, am I going to get shot? Am I going to get robbed? Is the cops going to raid this place? I'm nervous. I've got all this money on me to buy 1,000 pills. And I ask him if I could taste one. So he gives me one. He goes, do you want a chaser with that? I said, no, I'm just going to chew it. Because I knew what good ecstasy tasted like. It should be about 100, 125 milligrams of MDMA and clay. So it tasted all good. And he brings out this biggest bag of pills I've ever seen in my life. I gave him the bills. He gave me the pills. Get back in the car. Space shipping back to Phoenix, Arizona. 30, 45 minutes into the drive. The ecstasy hits me. I'm like this. And I've got this furry seat cover. And I'm like... I had a radar detector as well. So I've got it on cruise control. 100 and something miles an hour. Every now and then, radar detectors go... Beep, 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 beep. I'm slamming on. Listening to DJ Sasha. We got back. Renaissance. DJ Sasha Renaissance, man. All-time classic. That's exactly what the CD we had on. And got back to the apartment complex, Rancho Marietta. Those pills went in one weekend. I made thousands. Fuck the stock market. I could just make money partying.
What really stopped me as you were talking is when I think of your story, I think Shaun is this kingpin. It was all about money. He cared about money. But you mentioned ego. And I'm curious, what amount of getting attention and ego was this? Because going into this call, I kind of thought you were just a finance guy and it was all business model. But it's interesting to hear you say, actually, this started not because of money. I was making money. This started.
Yeah, I already had the money. And this is what perplexes people. Having been in prison, you meet a lot of criminals and they say, I had such a hard life. I had to do this to make money. And they look at me and they're like, what is wrong with this fucking guy? He's got money. He's got a good family. But it's not about money. Pablo Escobar was worth billions. I've written multiple books about Escobar. His brother Roberto said, why don't we just kick back on an island? Won't get killed by the competition. We won't end up in prison for the rest of our lives. And Pablo said, you want me to kick back on some island when I'm running a multi-billion-dollar business? I decide which president gets in power. I've got tens of thousands of people working for me. I've got this lifestyle. It's not money, it's addiction to the lifestyle. And Pablo couldn't give that up, no matter how wealthy he was, and that's how he ended up dead at a young age. So, I did have a altruistic reason as well. Earlier in this conversation with you, you said that, you went from hip-hop to a rave, and that vibe was just so peaceful and loving and happy, and you're glowing, aren't you, when you're surrounded by that many people on the same wavelength. So earlier I described my first ecstasy and speed. So as I was going those parties over a period of months and a few years, Summer of Love in the UK, late 80s, 1990, around them, I'd already formulated the goal of making $1 million by the time I was 30 in the stock market. But during my raving in the UK days, I also formulated the goal of transferring that rave scene over to America because I wanted the Americans to feel that vibe. So I had that side to it. But then once I became the man in a $1 million house on the side of a mountain, you're in your VIP room, you got 20 or 30 bodyguards, armed with tasers at the least, and the Mafia, Sammy the Bull Gravano's crew was our competition. The more I did drugs, the more it was telling me, you're living in a movie. It scrambled my decision-making processes. So if I'd have been sober, or someone sober had said, hey, look how deep you've got into this lifestyle, you need to put the brakes on, this is extremely dangerous. But no, the drugs is telling me, you're the man, you're Mr. Cool Guy, you're never going to get killed, you're never going to go to prison, you're too smart, you're above the law. It's feeding me all this bullshit, and it's your ego, in the end, that gets carried away, and it's all got to reverse at some point. And you see every movie like Goodfellas, Casino, Blow, starts out with glitter, glamour, the fun part of the cycle. There's this one slope up until it peaks. And then things go wrong. And once things start to go wrong, you think you could get it back over that peak to the glitz and glamour, and you can't. It is an irreversible force, like an invisible hand, just sucks you down, and it ends into the prison, police, or death, or mental hospital.
You were essentially battling 3 addictions. You were battling the addiction to the drugs, the addiction to the money that the drugs, and the addiction to the ego. So you were fighting an uphill mountain battle at that point. I wanted to shift to, okay, so you're in the rave scene, you're giving away and selling small amounts over a weekend. That's part 1, but part 2 is when you start making real money. You start causing real problems and getting on the radar. How does that shift start to take place?
Well, things just got bigger and bigger. I mean, the demand was insatiable for ecstasy. So we had people bringing pills into airports in America And then one woman got stopped at Sky Harbor Airport. She had them in her luggage in vitamin containers, jars. So they undid the luggage, put the jars on the table. They said to her, "What are they?" She said, "Vitamins." They said, "Cool," put them back in the luggage and told her to have a nice day. Yeah, so I had to consult someone then who was more expert in international trafficking. And what I mean by that is a lawyer, an attorney. And the lawyer said, "You're doing this all wrong, Shaun. The people should be flying them into Mexico and then just bring them over the border into Arizona." So things expanded. We had operations in Mexico. We had to be okay with the people down there. This is the Nogales, Puerto Penasco, Rocky Point region. And people would come into Tijuana Airport and bring the pills over to Puerto Penasco. And, especially if it's spring break or something like that, and the whole border's jammed up, it was easy to get them across. Nobody ever got caught bringing those pills across. But by now, we're bringing up to 30, 40,000 pills at a time. And the street value's $25 to $30 a pill. Back then, late 90s, Arizona. So that's how it got bigger and bigger. The logistics of it were streamlined. At the peak of it, I had about 200 people working for me. We had to rent a house just for the cash. I invested in rave clothing stores, music stores, so to launder some of the cash. My right-hand man, Cody Bates, he's another one who's dead now. He would go around and collect the cash and put the cash into that apartment. If there was any problems, he would come to the house on the mountain and tell me. And then if anything heavy was going down, I'd have to get Wildman involved or G-Dog involved or one of my other protectors to sort the situation out. And it got really heavy then when Sammy the Bull's crew knocked the teeth out of one of my sales guy. They lured him to a nightclub in Scottsdale under the pretext of doing a deal, took him into the men's room, knocked his teeth out, took all of his money, all of his drugs, absolutely everything. And I moved from Phoenix to Tucson after that to get out of the way.
So during that time period, Sammy the Bull, John Gotti, that is probably the scariest names you could hear in the United States at the time. How do they... So you're in competition. How do they start hearing your name? You guys are fighting for the same clients. That sounds like an incredibly dangerous situation to be in at that time with the power of these mobsters.
Yeah, so at that point in time, Sammy the Bull had testified against numerous people, including John Gotti, and he was in witness protection in Tempe, Arizona. So he did not have the backing of the Gambino crime family. Actually, there was a bomb plot to kill Sammy the Bull that was going down around the time he ended up getting arrested for the ecstasy charges. But since then, Sammy the Bull has said that he was not running the ecstasy ring. He said he does not know who I am. So I'd just like to be clear about that. People asked him, "Do you know who Shaun Attwood is?" Well, no one's going to know who Shaun Attwood is because I wasn't operating under Shaun Attwood. The prosecutor said I had so many aliases, they couldn't even put them all on my grand jury indictment. But what I do know factually is that I met Sammy the Bull's son in Towers jail for the first time, Gerard Gravano, and he was definitely one of the principals of the ecstasy ring. And the way I found out about Gravano, the Gravanos being involved in it, was my bisexual wife. She had a female lover who was dating one of these new type of ecstasy dealers who just suddenly started showing up. And she said that they wanted to meet me. So it was Heart 5, some bar in Tucson. I go up there with one of my bodyguards, one of the Rossetti brothers. He's packing. And, so I'm thinking these guys, I don't know who they are yet. They've probably heard my name, English Shaun. I'm going to have to put a bit of an act on here. So I slammed some GHB, had some crystal meth, and went in there, and which gives me this false bravery, So we go in, and there's a guy called a Spaniard, and there's another huge bodybuilding guy with him. They clear this VIP room, so there's just us three in there. As we're sitting down, I figure I've got to do something crazy. And I remember what my granddad did to me when I was a kid. He always used to grab me just above the knee and squeeze and make me jump. So as we're sitting down, I squeezed the both just above the knee. So the Spaniard was all cool and polite and collected the whole time. Shaun, we've got these pills. We know you're moving a lot of pills. We know you've got a lot of connections with the locals. Why don't you start moving pills for us? And I was aware that their pills were these coloured presses, not the beige presses I was getting from Holland, which was my trademark, I had a good reputation for. And I said to them, I don't want any of that coloured stuff. I've got a good reputation. The big bodybuilder guy jumps up. He's like, who the fuck do you think you are disrespecting our pills? Don't you know who we work for? One call to Sammy the Bull and we can have you taken out to the desert. So yeah, all of the news, the Sammy the Bull, Teflon Don, all that shit. So I knew that it was getting heavy. And Rossetti on the way out was like, Sammy the Bull, man, this how long will the peace last? Because I told those guys, I said, look, the problem, there's enough demand for us to coexist. And the main problem is now you guys are coming into the raves with your polyester shirts, bragging that you're the biggest ecstasy barons in the world, and it's brought all this heat. There's cars with the tinted windows filming license plates. There's undercover cops everywhere. It's not each other we got to worry about. It's the feds. And the Spaniard kind of agreed with that, and those guys left. But then, like I said, my guy got his teeth knocked out, and there was various run-ins with him. Yeah,
that's a really interesting point. You think I'm hearing Sammy the Bull, and I'm saying, wow, you are competing with these guys. That's terrifying. But you just mentioned, actually, we're not competing with each other. We're competing against the cops. That was really well put, because competition is one thing, but the real competition is the United States government and what their power is, because it's far more reaching than what they had, I'm sure.
Of course, we were just fodder for the war on drugs. I mean, I was a trafficker. I deserved prison time, but going in the prison, the average arrest was like a black kid or a Mexican kid with a bit of weed getting like a 2 to 5 year sentence to fill the private prisons. Absolutely sickening. So on my YouTube channel, our mission statement is end the war on drugs, start the war on predators and pedos, take all those resources from locking up low-level drug users to go after people who are harming other people, especially women and kids.
The fact that there are people in jail, as you and I are speaking right now, for weed charges, while there are weed stores on every corner here in Canada, at least, it's disgusting. And I think when we look back, we're going to be really disappointed historically with what we did, especially with marijuana, at least in the short term. But getting back,
look at the politician who brought the marijuana laws in, Harry Anslinger, 100 years ago, almost. And he said the main reason to make marijuana illegal is its effect on the degenerate races. So how on earth are we still holding marijuana as a Schedule 1 substance more harmful than crystal meth and coke with no medicinal value whatsoever at the federal level? That's absolutely sickening, and it's because the corporations want it there, and all these kids that die because they have so many seizures, they go into comas and die. All the blood on the hands of these politicians who've kept medicinal marijuana out of people's using. Oh man, it makes me angry. That's why I've written this War on Drugs series of books. Yeah.
I spoke to Ed Calderon about the war on drugs. He was working for Mexican drug enforcement, and he kind of feels like the idea of legalization is a positive. It's not the full solution, but legalization of drugs in the U.S. is a good start. What's your take on full-scale legalization?
Yeah, that's what we need. I'm a member of LEAP, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, and these are cops, judges, prosecutors who say the only way to take all that money out of the cartel's hands is full-scale legalization. Portugal, they did it with heroin. Well, they decriminalized and legalized, and the heroin users were no longer afraid of getting arrested. they got counseled by the health teams, and the heroin users more than halved in record time. So, writing about Escobar, I learned that drugs come from plants that are worthless. Escobar could get a kilo of coca paste for $60 out of Peru or Bolivia in the 1970s. Because of drug laws, a kilo of cocaine was going for $60,000. So drug laws have made worthless plants more valuable than gold. And it doesn't matter who you arrest, Escobar, Cali, Chapo. It's an iron law of economics that someone is going to step in and replace that person to try and capitalize on that absolutely mind-blowing record level of profit opportunity.
There are a few things that we're living through that you just know in your spirit are going to be so frowned upon in 100 years. My kids, my grandkids are going to say these people were insane. And that does really, it makes me sad. But I wanted to go back to actually jails and drugs in your case. Where are you at your peak, and when does things shift and you start facing jail time?
So the cops were on me from the get-go. They had 10 witness statements that came out that I read in my legal discovery. But because I moved around so much, and because perhaps we were so haphazard, because we were always high, and I was constantly changing the methodologies of smuggling, never spoke on phones, used pagers or met people in person or pay phones. We always saw people who were trying to infiltrate us. They were, older guys would come in from say we're from out of state, we want 1,000 pills. Fuck off. Obviously you're undercover cops. So I was in business for all those years before they finally caught up with me. The peak was like when the stock market peaked in 99, around then. Because when the dot-com bubble crashed was when all the darkness was happening in my life as well. Yeah.
Wow. You're also a very unique case. You're probably one of the only people I've ever spoken to that had this experience. So I wanted to ask you about it. You were addicted to a drug. A lot of people are addicted to drugs, but they have financial ceilings. They don't have access. You had unlimited resources. You had everything at wholesale, unlimited prices. What is it like to be addicted to a substance that you can use essentially until you end up killing yourself? You had no financial burden and you had as much as you needed. You're a very unique case study for that. So what was that like for you?
So we had very high quality product. People who went to Holland had testing kits. And even with other drugs, I had connections with the New Mexico Mafia, connections with the cartel. We could get like a kilo of coke, pearl white iridescent for like $12,000, something like that, uncut. So my main thing was ecstasy, and I would show off at the weekends, pop about 20, 30 pills. But again, that is 100% ego, because you can only get so high off ecstasy, and it's just a waste. You're just wasting the drug and wasting your money if you're popping that many pills. GHB can put you on the floor quite fast if you do too much. And I remember one time DJ Mike Hot Wheels showed up at my house to play at a rave in Arizona. He'd flown in from LA, and we thought, all right, we'll have some for the road. It's only 20-minute drive to where you're gigging. So he snorted a line of glass. I had a bottle cap full of GHB, and we're on the freeway, and it just hit me. I didn't even know. I just woke up I was in the fast lane the last thing I was in the fast lane. I woke up in the middle lane with him leaning over me, steering the vehicle. Yep. Now, at the after parties, I would literally end up sometimes flopping on the floor like a fish off doing too much GHB. And then I just go unconscious. And my friends were under instructions not to call the cops or an ambulance because everyone would get arrested. So just just watch me, make sure I'm breathing. And it rotated throughout many of us. We would just watch each other if we hammered the drugs too much. I did. Okay, Scottsdale Hilton Villas after party was the best location. We had this huge room in the middle of the building, DJ. Everyone's just having a good old time. Jacuzzi on the balcony on one side, jacuzzi jet bathtub on the other side, 2 bedrooms. And we go in and immediately we close all the curtains, the French blinds. We take all the paintings down and we put a different pile of drugs on every painting. So ketamine, coke, meth, ecstasy, Xanax, Mexican pharmaceuticals. Someone had the bright idea to mix them all up on one painting, do a mountain. So we did this mountain of drugs on this one painting, including mystery Mexican pharmaceuticals. We didn't even know everything that was in it. Again, ego, showing off. I shove $100 bill in my schnoz and just dive into this mountain head first, face plant, and just go, don't even know how much I'm snorting. Yeah, within like 20 minutes, I am laid out and blind. Yeah, I don't even know what's going on. My head then.
When you're living through this, do you ever fear death? Are you wondering?
No, I didn't think I would survive to 30.
Wow.
I was just like, fuck it, man. Fuck it, just party to the maximum.
You also mentioned purity, your product's purity, and I'm wondering if your success on a business level was because your product was so pure and you cared about safety, or do you also think there was an element of timing? You were one of the first guys in this rave scene. What do you think your business model success was?
All right, so there are certain business methods that apply to any business, whether it is illegal or legal. And they are reputation and product. And even the competition sometimes were telling people that they were selling pills for English Shaun, because I had such a good reputation for these pills that we were getting from Holland. So they were trying to capitalize on my brand. Yeah. So safety was a factor, because I ecstasy, some people can die from it. It's very rare. Nobody died from our pills. We would have known right away. So safety was a huge factor. Obviously, someone's going to die as well from our own selfish interest, as there'll be an investigation and all that kind of shit. We didn't want to deal with that. And then just business ethics. Because when we got to that guy's house in West Hollywood who kept us waiting for hours, Wildman was like, fuck this, man. He's kept us out here for hours. I'm just going to go and kick his door in and rob him. And I was like, well, if we do that, how are we going to have a relationship with the suppliers out of LA? What kind of business sense does that make? So I was always the balancing factor in business decisions, trying to keep relationships and keep the same people around me. People who burn through people in the drugs community end up with someone turning against them. We started out by, me and Wildman, mediated the disputes for all the little cliques in the Arizona rave scene. And by doing that, we ended up incorporating all those little cliques into our criminal enterprise. And we kept those local people with us, the same people, for the entirety of the operation. And they all had legal benefits. If they got arrested, a lawyer was assigned, bail money. They got no criminal history. They probably wouldn't do any prison time. We'd get them out. We schooled them. You've got a right to remain silent. Cop pulls you over. I'm in a hurry. What's your probable cause? You got no reason to search my car. And it's because we were so tight-knit that when all the shit hit the fan, even though over 100 people arrested with me, only 4 agreed to cooperate with the prosecutor. Sammy the Bull, 57 were arrested with him. All agreed to cooperate with the prosecutor.
Wow. You're getting caught. The chapter of this story is also very unique, because when I think of somebody getting caught, they got caught red-handed. There was a raid. There was a bunch of drugs under the mattress. They found a safe full of cash. There was actually a gap where you kind of you kind of left, or you thought you were distancing yourself and you got caught way down the road. So can you explain the day where this all goes wrong, that raid, and why there was such a gap?
So I'd met a woman, fallen in love. I was on the dark side of the drug lifestyle. Things were happening that were bad and scary. And she said, look, this is too heavy. If you loved me, you wouldn't be doing this. So I quit. And it was a year later, May 16th, 2002, bang, 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 bang on the door. SWAT team come in, door flies off the hinges, hands above your heads, get on the fucking ground. I fall down, and the lead detective pulls me up by the handcuffs. He's like, English Shaun, we finally got you, you bastard, basically.
Oh.
Yeah.
So what is it? What is that feeling like? Who's your first phone call? You're in prison. Just emotionally, what are you dealing with, and who are you calling?
It took a while to get a phone call. I was in the Horseshoe. I was in Towers Jail, one of them. And I called my aunt, Anne, who's also dead. She was the woman who ended up smuggling my blog entries out of the jail. And I told her, and I was like, we've got to tell my parents. And that made me sick, man, just to think that my mom's going to find out. 5,000 miles away, I just sent a bomb at my parents' house. So in the end, the call was organised with my mum and dad, and just to hear the heartbreak in their voices. That was just, yeah, but they had my back, and I'm just so blessed to have such good parents.
So they thought you were crushing it in the stock market. They had no idea this was a complete shock. Oh, man.
They'd visited the house and seen me on the computer day trading and stuff.
So now, after this conversation, how many years are they telling you you're facing? Do you have any hope whatsoever?
So in the first indictment, I've got like 12 charges approximately. Each one carries 5 to 10 years. So if I go to trial and lose and they stack them, there's 100 plus it. They slapped serious drug offender status on me right away, which is also another 25 to life. The lawyer didn't tell me that when he first visited me. He said, Shaun, what they're offering you and what you're facing right now, I'm just not even going to bother telling you. And it was in the media then that I had serious drug offender status. And that just absolutely crapped myself when I read that. I couldn't sleep. It was 25 to life. Fuck. So, fighting the case for a year, and then I go for a bail reduction hearing. My bail gets doubled to 1.5 million, and my charges get doubled to 20-something charges on a new indictment. So now the prosecutor says, look, if he goes to trial and loses, 20 charges, max 10 on each, we're going to stack them, because he won't sign a plea bargain, he won't cooperate. We're going to stack them to 200 years. And that was the point where I just planned to slash my wrists. I thought, I can't be doing this for the rest of my life. So I planned to do it after a guard did a security walk, but I wanted to say goodbye to my family and friends first. And what I mean by that is I was allowed 7 photos. So I get the photos out of my mum, dad, girlfriend, sister. And I started crying looking at the photos of my mum, thinking my mum's going to get a call saying your son's just killed himself in a foreign prison. I couldn't put my mum through that, and that's what stopped me from doing it. So the lawyer, who was recommended to us by the New Mexican Mafia, he was a good guy, man. He saved my ass. He got me 9.5 years, and he was a loophole lawyer. So as a first-time non-violent, non-US citizen, I was eligible for a deportation, a half-time release on the balance of my sentence. So I'd only have to serve 6 years, just under 6 years on the 9.5. And I just thought, wow, I am, so lucky. The day I got sentenced to 9.5 years was one of the happiest days of my life, because I could see I was actually going to get my life back, when for 26 months I'd been thinking I was going to spend the rest of my life inside.
You also mentioned earlier that a big help for you and something very unique was a united front. Can you explain in simple terms what a united front was and how it helped you, get free in 6 years?
A lot of people ask me about this when Tekashi got arrested. So whoever's got the most money in the case can afford to have the most powerful lawyer. And my guy was one of the top, if not the top in Phoenix. And what happens is you give that guy, in this case, I think it was almost 100 G's, and all the other lawyers, only a minority of my co-defendants were able to afford to have private lawyers. All my money was seized, so I couldn't get them private lawyers. Most had public defenders, which are referred to as public pretenders, because they just want to get you to sign a plea bargain so they can get onto the next victim. So the lead lawyer in a united front, basically all the other lawyers look to that lawyer for guidance in the case. And in our case, it worked out because people weren't agreeing to cooperate. I mean, prosecutor was offering sweet deals to everybody. And those people, for them not to cooperate and to do some prison time or whatever, you got to respect that.
So now you're going to prison in Arizona. Were you going to maximum security? And what is your first prison experience like? I'm sure it was incredibly daunting those first few days.
So I'd been in jail for 26 months already, and the jail was considered hard time. Prisoners from the Department of Corrections would say they would rather do 2 or 3 days in Department of Corrections than do 1 day in Sheriff Joe Arpaio's jail. That's how absolutely crazy it was. So I had been broken in solidly by Sheriff Joe Arpaio's jail. First year I'm in medium security. Second year when they double my bail and double my charges, then I'm in max security. My sentence was 9.5 years, but the prosecutor accidentally put it down as 34 years on the paperwork. So I was fast-tracked to supermax right away. And now that's an interesting experience in itself because you very rarely get out your cell. Armed guards in shank-proof body armor come and feed you through a trap in the door. And because the guys can't get out of their cells, they don't settle their disputes in the traditional fashion of using their fists. They weaponize shit. So basic shit weaponization is a chicken bone, some crap on it, in a blowpipe, roll some paper up or something. Someone goes past your cell, psh, you dart that person, the shit gets into your bloodstream, a lot of hepatitis and stuff in there, and it transfers throughout your body and messes with your immune system. I knew a guy who was on the cleanup crew for the shit slingers, and he said that the Rambo of the shit slingers was this guy called Magnum. And Magnum rigged his whole cell up with like tubes and shampoo bottles and stuff, and he left the shit sitting in shampoo bottles for days so mold grew on it with piss on it and cleaning chemicals and really foul weapon ready to use, and then he blasted the guards. So after he blasted the guards repeatedly like this, they went in and they put him in a burr cell, completely naked, handcuffs behind his body, in a burr cell, nothing in it at all except for a plug hole, a drainage thing. And there's like a hole in the door where the guard can come and look at Magnum. And what Magnum did was he shat on the floor, flipped over, mouthed the shit. Now bear in mind, it takes, you don't know when a guard's going to do a security walk. It could take up to 30 minutes. He held this molten shit in his mouth, which was, blending nicely with his saliva to produce this fluid that would just spurt out. And then he waits near the front. And when the guard came, and the guard was completely taken by surprise and didn't have his protective thing on or anything, thinking that there's nothing this guy could do to us now. When the guy put his eyes up to that hole, and Magnum's head popped up, and he goes, phew, shit went up the guy's nose and in his eyes. Yeah.
That is fucking insane.
Yeah.
You must have something that I really enjoyed speaking to you because of your sense of humor. You're a very fun storyteller. I've enjoyed this so much. And while you have this sense of humor, I've also heard you talk about, needing therapy and PTSD. That story you just shared, and to be honest, a lot of the stories you've shared, you've talked a lot about people close to you that have died. How has your struggle been going to therapy, trying to heal PTSD and this experience that was fucking chaos?
So I got released in December 2007. And the therapist, I did get some therapy towards the end of my prison, and he said, continue the therapy when you get out. And in my hometown, they told me there was a 3-year waiting list for it. And the mental health team, I told them I'd been on and off some medication in prison, but prison's crazy. And you get suicidal, and the meds helps you get through it. Now I'm out of prison. I'm in the normal world. I don't need it anymore. They said that when you feel normal, not only do you need it, but we want to double your dose. So I didn't get any help from the government, but I was on this program of self-education. I read over 1,000 books during the 6 years, a lot of philosophy, psychology, self-help. And I continued that with my yoga, my meditation. I joined a dojo, did karate for about 7 or 8 years. And the therapist in the prison said when you give something up, like the drugs lifestyle that you're addicted to, you got to put something in its place. And there's nothing wrong with channeling your energy into positive activity. So I was hooked on negative addictions, but now I'm hooked on positive activity, all these fitness classes. Even today, woke up, bust out 10 sun salutations straight away on my yoga mat. Been doing some nice muddy walks around the farmers' fields in the forest around here. Got to keep moving, doing physical things, because it's the physical things that keep the mental stable. Especially with people on lockdown, there's a vast treasure trove of knowledge that people who've been to prison have got to help the public get through lockdowns. If you sat around all day watching Netflix on your computer all day, your body, because it's not moving, there's an internal pharmacy, and it starts to release the stress chemicals. When you do healthy physical stuff, the endorphins cascade, and you're releasing the good drugs into your system then, and maintaining mental health. So that is my philosophy on life now, is to have, constant physical activity. Take time out to do it. You cannot sit hunched up over a computer all day and think you're going to remain healthy. You're going to destroy your back, and you're going to that will destroy your mental health as well.
That's really well put. And while I initially reached out to you, and I'm sure the majority of people that are clicking this video and listening to this audio, they clicked because of the story. They clicked because there's entertainment value and shock value, but there's also an element of your story, and this is how I wanted to wrap up. There's a kid listening right now. They lack opportunity. They know selling drugs is bad, but they don't see any other way out of their situation, or they are attracted to the ego and the admiration of others. What do you tell that kid to turn this story into a positive message so nobody goes through the experience you just told me about for the past hour?
Well, the politicians and the private prison owners that they're in business with would love that kid to be selling drugs, because they're looking at those kids as suckers, fodder. They can just fill these private prisons off and make tens of billions a year in contract money from. That's the way it's going to end for you. You're going to go to prison. If you're lucky, if you're unlucky, you're going to end up dead, or you're going to fry your mind and end up in a mental hospital. If you've got the skill set to traffic drugs or sell drugs, you've got the skill set to run a business, plus some, because you've got to have eyes in the back of your head in the drugs game. If you can apply that and persevere to a legitimate business, you will succeed eventually. Now, the catch is fast cash. Yeah, but that comes at a price. The cops are going to take absolutely everything when they finally get you, and you're going to lose all those years of your life. How much money could you have made at a normal job over 10 years, which is a realistic sentence that you might end up doing, instead of losing absolutely everything and coming out completely broke? It's a sucker's game. And in the long run, the only people who win are the politicians and the private prisons. So, I say, think like the Chinese, long-term planning. I was 14 when I decided to be a millionaire. By the time I was 30. And it took me about 10 years to get there. Again, my YouTube channel right now, people see it and think, wow, this guy's got successful fast. He's at 650 something thousand subscribers. I've had that YouTube channel for 12 years. My first 5 years, I was on government benefits, living in my friend's house. I look back at some of the early videos when I didn't even think about, the background or anything. I'm doing a video and I've got my dirty laundry basket right next to me in this room I'm rented from my friend. I think that one of those videos, What Happens to Sex Offenders in Prison, it's got like over 1 million views, and my dirty laundry basket is full of dirty laundry right next to me. So, things just don't happen overnight. It's the same with books. It took me about 10 years to become an Amazon bestseller and to start my own publishing company. It takes blood and sweat and hard work. And if you persevere, you will be rewarded. But I'll tell you this, the more successful you get, the more people try and trip you up. One of Escobar's favorite quotes was, envy kills more people in Colombia than cancer. And sometimes those are people who are close to you, people who you have helped. And when they do stab you in the back, you think, wow, why is this person doing this to me when I have helped them? And that's because you expect people to treat you like you treat other people. But there's all kinds of people out there. And some people are really snaky. And they see your success. And they think, I want that, or I want to destroy it. You don't deserve that. And they start to play these games. So there's all of these traps on the road to success. There's a book called Rhinoceros Success, actually. It describes it as a rhino. You're like a rhino tearing through the jungle, but like you hit a tree, or thorns scraping at your skin. And you twist and turn and go in another direction and charge again. And you fall down a hole. You just got to keep going, because at the other side of that jungle is the success. And not everybody wants to be successful materialistically and financially. I did when I was young. I thought money was the meaning of life, making money. But I learned it's absolutely not. Money is completely neutral. It's what you do with it that matters. But the meaning of life is actually happiness, mental happiness, and your health is your inner wealth. And that mental happiness is not determined by how much money you've got. Look, I had all that money in my 20s and look what it did to me. Happiness is determined by your thoughts and what's in your heart.
To celebrate the new podcast, I'm giving away a PlayStation 5 to one of my viewers. All you have to do is like and subscribe. That's it. Full details in the comments. Good luck.